I bought a Tapper colt at the Keeneland September sale and incredibly excited about that purchase. It was a colt that had plenty of size and scope and carried himself with a real presence that drew me to him.
I bought a Tapper colt out of Black Coronas at the Phasing 10th in July sale, out of a Curlin mare, big beautiful horse. We're real excited about him coming up in the spring.
Taprit, standing at Gainesway.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona and welcome to another edition of the TimeformUS Road to the Derby series presented by Gainesway, as Gainesway is presenting all of our coverage of the Kentucky Derby preps in 2022 at the Daily Racing Form. This week, the focus is the future race at Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday, really the future race of the season at Tampa Bay Downs. It is race 11 on their Saturday card, the Grade 2 Tampa Bay Derby, going a mile and a 16th on the dirt for the 3-year-olds. This one offering 50 Kentucky Derby qualifying points to the winner of this race. We've got a large field signed on, 12 runners. The likely favorite is going to be the number 4 Classic Causeway. I would imagine he would be a pretty substantial favorite. He is one of 5 horses coming out of the local prep for this, the Sam F. Davis. And he obviously was the winner of that race, and that's why he's listed at 8-5 on the morning line. The second choice on the line is the number 8 Major General, a horse that we haven't seen since last year when he was competing as a 2-year-old. Some of the other horses that are also coming out of that Sam F. Davis at Tampa are single digits on the morning line. The number 9 Shipsational at 5-1 and the number 7 Strike Hard at 8-1. I'm interested to see what the public does from a wagering standpoint with the number 11 Money Supply listed at 10-1 on the morning line, but a horse that's coming off a pretty flashy speed figure in his career debut. So I wouldn't be surprised if the public bets him down quite a bit, and I could even see him going off as the second choice in this race behind that number 4 Classic Causeway. Before we get into the contenders, let's take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector for this race. And no surprise, in a race featuring a large field of 12 runners, there is a fast pace predicted. You see that red flag in the TimeformUS pace projector indicating a likely fast pace. And also no surprise to see the horse that's likely to set the pace is the number 4 Classic Causeway. He led from gate to wire in the Sam F. Davis last time, and he's probably going to try to use the same tactics here in the Tampa Bay Derby. There aren't too many confirmed frontrunners in this race outside of Classic Causeway. To the inside, the number 2 Trademark could get an aggressive ride, something that did not happen last time in the Sam Davis, but Trademark is a horse that has used front-running tactics in the past. Really, everybody else in this race is going to be looking to either take up a stalking position or coming from farther off the pace. So we'll see how fast this pace ultimately turns out to be, but it does seem like Classic Causeway will be quick enough to clear off to the front end. And speaking of Classic Causeway, let's take a look at his past performances, since he really is pretty obviously the horse to beat in this Tampa Bay Derby. And there you see last time out, he earned a career best 113 TimeformUS speed figure when he won the Sam F. Davis, finishing 3 3/4 lengths ahead of today's rival Shipsational, who will meet again. But Classic Causeway did speed off the early lead that day. None of the fractions of the Sam F. Davis are color-coded in red, which would indicate a very fast pace, but he did earn a couple 131 TimeformUS early pace ratings at the first 2 calls. That's certainly an honest pace going a mile and a 16th, and he just kind of ran the rest of the field off their feet. Nobody could really go with him late, and you had to like the way that he spurted away at the end. He's a horse that had started off his career with a 112 TimeformUS speed figure when he won his debut so impressively up at Saratoga, and he disappointed some people after that when they immediately stretched him out in distance, but seemed like he benefited from those runs at the end of his 2-year-old season, really taking that step forward that I think we all expected after his career debut when he won the Sam F. Davis last time. So let's take a look at the stretch run of the Sam Davis. And Classic Causeway is that chestnut horse with the white blaze coming into the stretch with the lead. And as I said, he's just going to widen away from this field in the late stages. Some other horses to pay attention to are Shipsational, that horse with the pink cap towards the left of the screen, who's going to be coming on for second. Also the number 4 in this race, Golden Glider, a horse that you saw right there, kind of had to alter course a little bit to the outside of another Marcassi runner who kind of crossed over in front of him. But really, nobody was any match for Classic Causeway in this race, and that's why he did win that race so resoundingly, and he'll be a pretty decisive favorite in this Tampa Bay Derby. But let's take a look at some of those horses that did finish just behind him, including the number 9 Shipsational. This is a horse who is a New York bred and running against state bred company. He did show quite a bit of talent as a 2-year-old, primarily when he won that Bertram F. Bongard Stakes back in September, earning a 110 TimeformUS speed figure. That seemed like a little bit of an outlier at the time, but he got back to that number last time when he finished second to Classic Causeway in the Sam Davis, and you had to like the way he finished off that race. It was his first time trying a 2-turn distance, had some distance questions being a son of midshipman who is known as more of a 1-turn sire, but Shipsational showed no problem handling today's distance in that race as he was finishing best of all to be second behind Classic Causeway. And also that was his first time really closing effectively from farther back in the pack. He had used a much more up-close tactical running style in his prior races, so it was nice to see him show that versatility last time out. And I think it gives his rider, Manny Franco, some options as he'll be looking to play the break from an outside post position. I think Shipsational is arguably the biggest threat to Classic Causeway, given the way that he ran last time. And furthermore, there is some rain predicted in the Tampa Bay area on Saturday. We'll see if it comes early in the day. I think it's predicted to really hit in early afternoon. This race going to be run, I believe, a little bit after 5 p.m. Eastern time. So maybe the track will dry out a little bit, but it should be noted that Shipsational is the only horse in this race with experience over a sloppy sealed racetrack. And he's actually 2 for 2 over that kind of surface. So that could be a real feather in his cap if the rain does come on Saturday. Another horse coming out of that Sam F. Davis that I do want to mention is the number 6 Golden Glider, a horse that I briefly highlighted in that replay. He was the one that was kind of altering course toward the left of the screen. He finished 5th ultimately and did lose some ground at the end of that race. I thought that he was getting a pretty good trip up until the quarter pole, kind of stalking in mid-pack, saving a little bit of ground, but it just seemed like his rider, Antonio Gallardo, had a little bit of trouble finding a clear path for him coming into the straightaway, and I'm not really sure how much run he would have had if he had kind of been able to build up some momentum and had that clear run through the stretch, but ultimately he didn't finish as strongly as he had in his prior 2 races. He's a horse that was very visually impressive winning his debut over the Tapeta course at Woodbine back in November of last year. He ran well in his next start at Tampa Bay Downs on the dirt, though was beating a much weaker field, and then last time out did not take the step forward that I think you really wanted to see. He's still an improving horse, and I think he has upside, but this is a slightly tougher spot than the one that he faced last time. One more horse that I do want to mention coming out of the Sam F. Davis is the number 2 Trademark. Now, this is the horse that I think could keep Classic Causeway company on the front end in this Tampa Bay Derby. And as you see in the running lines, he did win in gate-to-wire fashion 2 and 3 back at Churchill Downs, going the same mile in the 16th distance. And he actually earned a pretty nice 107 TimeformUS speed figure when he broke his maiden back at the end of October. Last time, there was quite a bit of speed signed on in that Sam F. Davis, and for whatever reason, his rider, Daniel Centeno, decided to rate him, and you could just see in the early stages of that race that Trademark was really resenting those rating tactics. He was getting a little bit rank, pulling on the rider's restraint, and just never seemed to settle for a good half mile at the beginning of that race, and that obviously sapped his finish. He really had nothing left for the final quarter mile, but I don't think that's really the best version of Trademark, and I'm somewhat encouraged that they're coming back in this Tampa Bay Derby despite that poor effort in the last place finish last time out. So maybe the connections have figured out what went wrong last time and they're going to change up the tactics. Maybe something else went wrong that they fixed up since then in the intervening 4 weeks since that Sam F. Davis. So he's a horse that is 30-1 in the morning line, and I'd be inclined to give him one more shot. Not necessarily to beat Classic Causeway, but I think he's the kind of horse that you might want to use in the exotics. Let's take a look, though, at some horses that are now coming out of some different races, beginning with the number 11 Money Supply. And let's take a look at his maiden win when he won his debut, actually on the Sam F. Davis undercard. This was the first race of the day on Sam F. Davis Day at Tampa Bay Downs, and that is Money Supply in that green cap coming into the stretch. Along the inside, he's going to close down the leader and draw off pretty impressively to win this race by about 2 lengths. Now, this was a very fast maiden race compared to the other 6 furlong races on this card. I think it went in 1:09 and 3/5 seconds. There were some stakes later on that went in comparable or slower time. So Money Supply is a horse that I think speed figure makers had a little bit of trouble deciding what to do with, because that maiden race that he exits featured a lot of first-time starters, and that's always kind of a headache for figure makers with no prior form to go on. You kind of have to guess that the track was either the same or it changed based on very little evidence. Money Supply, he got a 91 buyer for that race, which is almost unbelievably high for a field of first-time starters at Tampa Bay Downs at this time of year. I know Craig Milkowski, who makes the TimeformUS speed figures, decided to break that race out from some of the races later on in the day, thinking that maybe the track slowed down by the time they ran the Sam F. Davis. So the 103 TimeformUS speed figure, a little bit lower than the number the buyer speed figures assigned to him, but still, it was a reasonably fast race. The question that I have with Money Supply is the stretch out in distance. It's a big ask for a horse to go all the way from 6 furlongs in his debut out to a mile and a 16th around 2 turns in just his second career start. Chad Brown does not have the best numbers doing this. And also, I want to take a look at a pedigree stat in DRF Formulator that I'm going to highlight for Money Supply sire, Practical Joke. Practical Joke, in his first crop, he's had a really nice year with his 2-year-olds and now carrying on to his 3-year-olds. They've turned a year older. Good numbers with debut runners, but primarily the success among the progeny of Practical Joke has come in dirt sprints. As you can see in the highlighted red portion, he's had 38 dirt sprint wins among his progeny, just 2 dirt route wins, and obviously a lot fewer starters, but winning at just a 6% rate in that small sample, we really haven't seen a lot of evidence that these progeny of Practical Joke want to go 2 turns. So I want to see Money Supply do it first before I back him, and I don't think you're going to get that 10-1 morning line. As I said at the start, I wouldn't be surprised if it gets bet down to half that price. Another horse that might attract some support in this Tampa Bay Derby is the number 8 Major General. He is 2 for 2 in his career, and he's coming off a stakes win when he won the Grade 3 Iroquois at the end of his 2-year-old season, all the way back in September of last year. And we haven't seen him in nearly 6 months since then. So that is a bit of a question mark for a horse coming off that kind of a layoff in a tough race like the Tampa Bay Derby. But Major General really did nothing wrong in his first couple of starts last year. He was game to win both of them by a neck each time, or actually a higher TimeformUS speed figure when he won his debut at Saratoga. The problem is, when he stretched out to this distance last time in the Iroquois, he had to work pretty hard to beat a field that really has not come back that strong. The 95 TimeformUS speed figure, that number has kind of been validated since then. Nobody's really come back to run that much faster out of the race, so that's not a great sign. And also, I was looking up some stats for Todd Pletcher in DRF Formulator, and over the past 5 years, with 3-year-olds coming off a layoff of 120 days or more in graded stakes dirt routes, the sample size for Todd Pletcher is 0. He hasn't had any horses come off a graded stakes and come off a layoff and run as a 3-year-old in a graded stakes in a dirt route over the past 5 years. So that's just an odd thing for Todd Pletcher. You would have thought he would have done it at least once or at least a few times, given the number of good 3-year-olds in his barn. But kind of a weird situation first for Todd Pletcher and Major General. So not quite sure what to make of that, but he's a horse that I was a little bit skeptical of if he takes some money in this race. One more horse that I do want to discuss is the number 3 Happy Boy Rocket. Let's take a look at his maiden victory when he won down south in Florida at Gulfstream Park at the end of January. That is him coming into the stretch with the lead. This son of Run Happy did really improve in his second start, stretching out in distance, kind of contrary to what you might have thought about Run Happy. A lot of the Run Happies have improved going longer distances. He's actually a sire with very good dirt route stats among his progeny. The question with Happy Boy Rocket is, what was he beating last time? We have seen some horses come back out of that race to validate the speed figure from the TimeformUS standpoint. Some horses ran slightly faster in a subsequent race, but Happy Boy Rocket is going to have to run considerably faster than the 93 TimeformUS speed figure that he got last time if he's going to get on par with a horse like Classic Causeway, who on the TimeformUS scale ran about 20 points faster when he won the Sam F. Davis last month. So I think Happy Boy Rocket is a horse that's heading in the right direction, just asking a lot of him in his 3rd career start, coming off a mere maiden victory. So let's throw out my picks for this race, as I was kind of alluding to towards the start of my analysis of the Sam F. Davis. I'm not trying to beat Classic Causeway in this spot. He's going to be a pretty short price, but I kind of think he deserves to be, just based on recent form. It looks like he is superior to this field, and I think he's going to get his preferred trip once again, either on the lead by himself or potentially stalking the number 2 trademark if they decide to get aggressive with that rival to his inside. But I don't think that's going to bother Classic Causeway too much if he has to sit outside that foe. So I picked Classic Causeway on top. I have the number 9, a Shipsational, in second. We'll see if he gets his wet track that he might enjoy, but I thought he ran well to be second to that Sam F. Davis, and I primarily primarily did want the horses coming out of the Davis in this Tampa Bay Derby. And you can even say I have the number 2 trademark in third. That is that 30-1 morning line shot that I think might be able to rebound off a poor effort in the Sam F. Davis with a different set of tactics in this Tampa Bay Derby on Saturday at Tampa Bay Downs. Thanks to Gainesway for presenting this video, and good luck to you if you're playing the races this weekend.